Welcome back to the ReEducation Camp podcast. Karen O'Toole here with Colin Miller. I apologize for my voice, and we apologize for not being here last week. Much like the fabulous Nick Fuentes, I also lost my voice last week, and I don't know if it's for the same reasons, but it seems that I like to think that God silenced both Nick and I this past week, Colin. That's what I think. For some reason, God intervened. I went on a roller coaster last week at the beautiful park, Knobles. Not that they are associated with the show. I don't want them to give us a cease and desist. But I was on
Sponsored by Knoebels Grove in Elysburg, Pennsylvania.
yeah, so I was on a roller coaster screaming and with family, and it was loud, it was crowds, and I lost my voice last Saturday. And sure enough, like I was kind of lackadaisical about like treating it. Like I bought throat comfort tea, and I usually throw some honey in that, and I've used that in the past, but just because I used to be on air every day so I needed my voice to recover. This past week I thought, oh, it'll just take care of itself, but it kind of hasn't. So I don't know, maybe God is permanently silencing me, but
There's
I think
hints of a rasp there. I was going to say
there
there's
there
subtle
are, yes,
hints.
there are some. Well, I did go out yesterday, so I feel like that like didn't help that it wasn't rested. But nonetheless, Nick Fuentes and I silence this week. I do think that he reemerged too with a little bit of a raspy voice.
He did. I listened to his
Also,
show on Friday. He was
because
definitely struggling a bit there.
was that the one where the woman was in this? There was like the woman's hair. It was a journalist. Did you see that?
I don't know what you're referencing,
Okay,
actually.
there
No.
was so in the shot, a woman's hair comes down. Like you could see this blonde hair, and they thought it was his girlfriend, but here it was actually a journalist that was like sitting in. I don't understand why journalists aren't
Uh,
interested in this important show.
well, I feel like there's a lot of crossover. Like we always reference, we drop these little Fuentes references, and it got me thinking, like, I wonder what the crossover is because we're a very America first kind of a podcast, I think,
I'm a
in what
God
we talk
first.
about.
I think we are a God first podcast. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay,
We're not a faith-based show, but I don't want to say I'm America first. I'm God first. I'm a citizen of Christ's kingdom. Okay.
there you go.
That's how I feel. Yes. So I am a bond slave of the Messiah. That is how I see. And if but America is my home. So, and I do support it. And I do think that
And
we
America
should.
was touched by the Almighty, so
Yes. Yeah. You could. Yeah. That's actually interesting. I was reading, I didn't think I'd bring this up, but if you could see this, folks, uh, this is the latest edition of the Atlantic magazine. And they did a whole write up about all of the prayers, a close reading of the Trump rally prayers. And they kind of outline that in the article. It was interesting to read an article from like the outside looking in, because I feel like they are looking at like a specimen when you're reading it. And I feel like this is just like the way I talk, like the way they're talking about how like, the Christians believe that like America was like, and not, I don't want to say anointed is the word, but kind of like touched, like you said, by the Almighty, and that we need to repent and heal our land. And this is just stuff that like I talk about very openly. I don't know if openly is the correct word, but just nonchalantly. And the way that they like dissect it in here is basically like they're studying like an alien species.
right. Like we're
Yeah.
behind the glass, and
Yes.
they've got the clipboard there. They're making notes. They're observing. I get you.
No, that's exactly. Yeah, I will say, yeah. So that's kind of like what the article felt like. I was just like, oh, I guess I am one of these extremists that they're talking about. But
Oh, we're definitely extremists of one sort or
or
another.
another. Yeah, apparently at this point. But yeah, so like you said, they were talking a little bit about that. And I think it goes to show there is a part of me that feels like we are about a month out from this election, and everybody, as they write in here, because of some of this, it does feel almost apocalyptic. Like this election is an apocalyptic election that is taking place in less than, I guess, 36 days from
Well,
today, September.
let's see. It's September 29th, Sunday, September 29th at the time we're recording this. Can
I'm
we
not
do
going
some math here?
less than 40 days. Let's just say
Less
less
than
than 40
40
days.
days. There
Yeah,
we
we're not
go.
gonna, because it's like, do we count today? Do we not count today? Who cares? But they were talking about how it feels apocalyptic for a lot of people. But I feel like it feels that way for people on the left too. And what I wanted to kind of examine is that it almost feels as if the left and the right, and especially pockets of the left and the right, it does feel like an existential crisis for both groups, that where we can't really coexist anymore, like the bumper sticker says. Like, I feel like people, I'm not saying that we can't. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I feel that is the current state of affairs, where people feel as if we are not on the same page. And I think that fundamentally that comes down to a disagreement about right and wrong, about truth, about black and white, dark and lightness. I mean, there really are a lot of dis- disagreements that are so fundamental about just, we're living in a post-truth world, that I do feel like at some point in time there are such rifts that I'm not really sure that they can coexist with one another. I don't know. Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying?
Well, it makes perfect sense. It actually just made me think of a Megadeth lyric from the song Holy Wars off of the 1990 album Rust in Peace, which I highly recommend. One of the lyrics is, "A country that's divided surely will not stand." And that's where we're at nowadays. And that's where the powers that be, that's the point that they've been working towards, right? I mean, divide and conquer. It's the oldest strategy in the playbook. And it sounds cliche to say, oh, this country's never been more divided than it is now. But I mean, it's true. And this election does feel like it is apocalyptic, as you were saying. It feels like there's a lot riding on it, but at the same time, I don't know. I've been feeling very disenfranchised, very black pilled, if you will, over the whole thing because it feels like no matter who wins, we are plunging headfirst into World War III. Everything that's going on in the Middle East right now blows my mind. How nobody's I shouldn't say nobody's talking about it, but very few people are talking about the dangerous point that we've arrived at right now. And the point that I'm referencing is it feels like the last domino, which is Iran, which this plan has been outlined for decades now, how we're gonna go into all these Middle Eastern countries and we're gonna overthrow them, and Iran was the last one in the series of dominoes to fall. And it just feels like avoidable, no matter who wins, whether it's Trump or Kamala, that we are going to be getting involved in another Middle Eastern war, a very far reaching Middle Eastern war. I mean, it's going on right now. And people on the right, especially, I feel, are not really talking about it. Like, have you heard anybody on the right talking about how dangerous this is right now, what's going on in the Middle East? I haven't.
Uh, yeah, like you said, I do know that someone I work with has kind of mentioned, I don't understand how Israel can fight all these different wars. How can
And
they?
that's my point. They
Yeah, how
can't.
can they, yeah,
So
how can, yeah, that's a good point. Like, if okay, so if Israel is fighting battles on every single front on their own, at some point in time they're going to need some kind of assistance. And we've seen this in the past where, oh, okay, the British turn around, and hey, I'm not an expert, but okay, you see the British and the French, they're being beaten back by the Germans, and oh, Pearl Harbor happens. Oh, we see these circumstances where all of a sudden we're kind of part of that situation. So I do understand. I think that that's kind of what some people, like you said, I God forbid, I hope that doesn't happen, that some calamity takes place where all of a sudden we're drawn into this war. But I believe USS Harry Truman just shipped out to the Mediterranean, and, like, it's something I'm very concerned about, and I think you said, I don't know if you said in the podcast, but you definitely said to me, it's like we're going to the ballot box and we're choosing which war we wanna fight. Like,
Right.
and maybe we're fighting more than one war.
It's like, okay, so Kamala gets in there. Let's just say she gets in there. Well, the Ukraine war, they want to extend that for as long as they can, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that's a big cash cow for the military industrial complex. And it's going to be a big cash cow for BlackRock as well, too, because they want to be the one to do the cleanup. So I feel like if Kamala wins, that's most definitely going to be extended. If Trump gets in there, well, my biggest fear with Trump all along was surrounding JD Vance, because right after he got off stage at the RNC in that interview he gave with Sean Hannity, boy, it didn't take him more than 60 seconds to start talking about how we need to be bombing Iran and we need to, like, this provocative talk about how we need to somehow be involved in regime change in Iran. And Trump has really been playing into all of the conspiracy theories surrounding the alleged Iranian assassination attempts on his life. We were talking a little bit off air, and I was basically saying, like, Iran's foreign policy for forever now has been to avoid a war with the United States. They don't want a direct conflict with the United States. Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm certainly no expert on these matters, but I think one of the reasons why they haven't become fully nuclear is to, basically, you know, show to the US, like, hey, listen, we're keeping our uranium enrichments at a certain level. They don't want to poke the bear. At the same at the same time, they kind of want to have some sort of a deterrence. Like, they're basically saying, like, hey, we can develop a nuclear weapon, but we're not going to. So anyway, their foreign policy has always been about not escalating things with the US. So it would make absolutely no sense for them to attempt to assassinate Trump, because here's the scenario that I fear the most. And here is where I think we're headed, sadly. So let's say Trump gets in, and then God forbid something happens. Who knows? Some sort of false flag event, either another attempt on his life that's successful, God forbid. And then what happens then after that? Well, JD Vance is the president. Like I was just saying, he made it quite clear that he wants to be involved in some sort of conflict with Iran. A Republican Congress is gonna, right away, they're gonna,
Rubber
rubber
stamp
stamp
that.
escalation with Iran. That's the most likely scenario, sadly, that I see. Trump gets in there, something happens, Vance is president, a Republican Congress rubber stamps the Iran war, and here we are. And I think that this would be 1,000 times worse than the war on terror that we grew up in. I think it's going to be 1,000 times worse than the Iraq War. I think this is going to be different because this involves, oh my God, the amount of moving parts that this Middle Eastern conflict would involve. I mean, China and Russia would certainly be involved at some point because they're allied with Iran, right? Like, it's just I just foresee another big Middle Eastern quagmire that we do not need to be involved in. But it just seems inevitable. It almost seems inevitable. Like, I'm not even saying if Kamala got in there. I still think that there's a high probability that we would get involved, and we'd still be involved in Ukraine. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It just seems like a like a lose-lose situation. Like I was saying, like, what what are we actually voting for by voting for Trump. Like, the most we can hope for is maybe gas prices will be lower and maybe we can afford groceries. Like, oh, so we're voting for some crumbs basically,
Yeah.
because Trump is not he's certainly not a nationalist candidate anymore. There's really no talk of nationalism anymore. It just more foreign conflict, more mass migration, not less. The whole stapling green cards
Well,
to diplomas thing.
I feel with Trump, and I really recognize this in the debate, that the concern, and hey, I understand we all have like a lot of us have a rational ignorance when it comes to politics. Uh, like I am no expert. I always say that I'm no expert. I'm here actually. I welcome a day where we are all not so involved with politics, but I feel like Trump has an abstract, as he said in the debate. I have concepts of an idea. I have concepts of a plan. And I feel like that's how he is in general, where he doesn't completely comprehend his policies. He doesn't completely comprehend the best uh plan, or the best he doesn't really have a black and white, I suppose, stance on every single issue. But I feel as if he knows that things are not on the right track and he's just trying to get them back to, like you said, maybe the 1990s. Like that's really where I think Trump is. And I feel like you really saw that when he was talking about some of the issues during the debate. You see that there's no like real core there where he completely, and I don't think that he really prepared for the debate either. I think he did not prepare enough
That's
for the
not
debate.
his style. He's not
Yes,
about
yeah.
preparation. He's
Yes,
about
yeah.
shooting from the hip.
Yes. But I feel like he is not necessarily a policy person, which in some ways might not be terrible. That's not exactly, but at least he should have a platform to point to. But in defense of him, he already was president. So we kind of can know what to anticipate. Unfortunately, we did have COVID, so we didn't get to really see the full extent of the Trump presidency, because you can't really, I feel like at this point, like most people don't, there are some people that might judge him based on 2020, but I feel as if there's a lot of people who no longer do. And I'm not sure I mentioned this on the last podcast, but I feel like for a lot of people, they just feel like, okay, well, if you recall when Trump was last in office, how many people were just getting PPP money and unemployment, and just like everything was so much cheaper. Their rents were significantly cheaper, their groceries were cheaper, and they were getting stimulus checks. So for your average American, that might be the last thing that they recall about Trump. I'm not necessarily in favor of any of that. I actually have a friend who, that is one of the reasons he does not want to vote for Trump, is because he believes that there will be some kind of a new scenario where Trump is just opening up the floodgates of the Federal Reserve and just, or the
Like COVID
Treasury, and
2.0, like
yeah,
some
and
other
just
calamity.
sending out some more money. And he said, I just want him to go away. And he goes, and I just want the executive branch and the office of the presidency to not dominate all of our cultural lives. And honestly, that would be
I don't think
amazing.
that's
But
possible though at this
I
point.
don't
The
think it's
genie's out of the
possible.
bottle.
No. I feel, well, yeah, I feel like like, look at us. It's like we're sitting here talking. We are so close to the election. It's like, okay, we have to kind of get into this, right? It's like this
I
is
hate
what's
this
going on.
election, by the way. I really I've grown to really
Well, yeah, like
despise.
you said, like I'm sitting there trying to convince my friends to perhaps not vote for Kamala Harris. But sitting there as I'm trying to like express why I'm not voting for her.
Yeah, what's your selling
I'm
point, really?
I'm like, why am I voting? Wait, what? I can understand. Like sometimes Trump is like indefensible. You're just really like, especially for those people that are kind of in the middle of the road. Obviously, you have some friends of yours or some associates that you are not even going to have. You actually are completely ignoring the conversation. You're just like, I don't ever want to talk to you about politics. I don't ever want to talk to you about issues. I don't want you to know. I don't vote. I'm just going to tell you that I don't vote.
Yeah, I
Let's
mean,
just
besides
completely
you,
skip. Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
really have anybody who I feel comfortable talking with politics about. Like besides like people in my like certain people in my family, you, I can't think of like another friend really outside of family and you that I can bring up. Well, no, you know what? That's not true. There is one other person from high school who is kind of more on our wavelength. But in general, in a nutshell, it's like you can't say anything one way or another, or else that could open the floodgates to a whole world of hell that you don't need in your life. Your life is already complicated enough.
Well, also too, people so I do have friends that we can agree to disagree. Like I can respect. They never attack me. They
They
never
hate you,
never
Karen.
yes, they
They hate.
they're like, "Karen, you think they don't hate you, but when the Stasi shows up, you're
Oh,
number 1, okay?"
they're making voodoo dolls right
Yeah,
now.
they're
They're
like,
brewing up
"Please
potions.
find Karen. She voted for Trump." They'll be like, do you know anyone who ever was associated with the Communist Party?" And it'll be like, "Do you know anybody that was ever associated with the MAGA MAGA movement?"
Right.
Karen, you can go find her. She lives in the hell in the coal region. And they'll be like knocking like down my door. And they'll
You'll
be
be
like,
like, please
they
take me
ratted
away,
me
take me
out.
out of
Yeah.
here. Take me somewhere, take me someplace better.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be like, you know what? That January 6th prison gulag sounds way better than the coal region. Please,
Or
please
maybe like
take
you could
me.
be, maybe you could be with the Tates in Romania. Like maybe you can request like a transfer to Romania with it. I feel like that'd be
I
kind
can
of
be with
fun.
P. Diddy eating steak.
Yeah, right. You could be with Diddy, in New York and Rikers Island. Maybe you could be
Yeah.
with Trump. I feel like
Yeah.
that's still not out of the
Yes. Yeah.
question.
Can you imagine being Trump's cellmate? That would be
That would be
you could be
interesting,
like
huh?
writing like Solzhenitsyn, like write some notes with you and Trump. But we laugh and like in 5 years we'll be thinking back to this moment and be like, we were so we had
Likely.
little did we have any idea what was to come, the calamity and the chaos to ensue. But uh I could have I have a limited amount of people that I can have conversations with, and I actually do have a cousin that's like a Bernie support, and you voted for Bernie and actually volunteered for him in the past.
Oh yeah,
Um
2016 Bernie. I still say that was a good candidate. I,
yeah,
I I was
but
not as into 2020 Bernie. I feel like he got a bit too woke, so to speak. But no, I'll tell people. Yeah, I liked 2016 Bernie. I think he would have been a good president. But that's neither here nor there.
yeah, and we're able to kid. Like I have a cousin that we like kind of joke around, and his mom is a big talk radio conservative woman, and we all like make fun. Like she'll be like, she jokes, they go vote together, and they joke that they're canceling each other's votes out. Like I feel as if so I do have some family and some friends that we can sit there and have a conversation and just go through our different stances and go through ideas and not make the other person feel lesser and not and really try to understand one another. And I feel as if that has been completely lost. Like you said, you really don't even want to have conversations with people because they label you like I was joking about the Stasi earlier, but I really do feel like there are people that will think you're like I can't even talk about certain things because I do feel like it would make people think I was some kind of extremist, I was some kind of bigot, I was some kind of Nazi for very, very benign, like 1990s, like Democrat beliefs. Like it's not even
Right.
something extreme. Like, I don't know, maybe children shouldn't be getting hormones and choosing their gender. And like you're labeled a hater and a bigot, and you like it's really, really shocking that we're at this point, but I think it goes to show that, like I said at the beginning of the show, we're living in a post-truth, postmodern existence or society that's pushing towards that. And it just makes conversations a lot more complicated with people because you have a fundamental disagreement on what's true and what's false.
Well, speaking of which, Karen, I actually did have a clip that I
Oh,
wanted to
yes. Yeah.
share with you and our listeners here that kind of ties into this post-truth era that we are
Yes.
entering here. And this clip is one of our favorites, Mr. John Kerry. We've talked about how much we love Mr. Kerry
Yes.
before.
He is the high priest of climate change. He is one of the high priests,
Hmm.
high priestess Greta Thunberg,
Absolutely.
part
And
of
I
the
have to make
religion,
sure I have to make sure that
religion of climate change. Oh,
the
yes. Please
audio
make
is
sure.
included
We are
here.
such professionals.
I know. Well,
We
I
are. We
mean,
really strive for excellence. So I really feel okay. Watch
so let me
again.
know if you can hear this. Can you hear?
No, unfortunately, I cannot.
No. Damn. That is a shame. I don't know why I can't share. Oh, that's because I didn't click share sound. Here we go. This is going to work now. All right.
And I think the like of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go, and that people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways, and
So
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
So there you have it. Mr. John Kerry at the World Economic Forum.
Well, if we put Project 2025 in place, 90% of the government staff will be reduced. That's a fake number.
If only, Karen.
If only, yeah,
If-
it's not really
if only.
90%, but if we put that in place, then maybe we will not get slowed down and there will be rapid, and then democracy can keep up because it's not so bogged down by bureaucracy. So maybe John Kerry is trying to say there that he's in favor of Project 2025. I have a feeling that's not what he's saying.
Probably not. Have you ever heard like a so-called elected official? Are you still there?
Elected official. I don't know if he's elected. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah,
Listen.
I thought I lost you there for some
Okay.
reason, but
No, I'm
an
here.
elected official, a representative of our nation, if you will, talking about the First Amendment as something that's like pesky and in the way, and it's just really annoying, and something needs to be done about it so we can control the conversation. Very, very disturbing.
Well, yeah. Hey, do you want to build consensus? The government needs to build consensus as trust. Here's an idea. Stop lying to us. Stop telling us that we need to wear masks when they don't work. Stop telling us that we need to be 6 feet apart from people when that's not true. And it's something from a child's book report. Like, maybe tell us the truth and maybe we'll believe you. Okay. Like maybe start there with some truth and regain our trust. And that's the problem. It's not that, okay, twofold. I do agree with him in some aspects. There is an unsurmountable amount. I don't know if it's unsurmountables, but there's an unbelievable amount of mis and malinformation circulated.
So much
Okay.
coming at us all at the
Yes.
same time. Hard to sift
Absolutely.
through and
Yes.
determine what's what, what's true, what's false.
Exactly.
I get that.
And I also do believe, I do agree that that is true. I mean, I see all the time, I see people share things consistently on a daily basis that I look at for 1 second. I see a meme and I think, did you check? Somebody actually check the sources on this? Is this true? Like, I don't think that this is true. And a lot of times it is false. And so I do have to say that people need to be more skeptical, and they need to, even when you listen to this podcast, like, we don't always have things right in front of us, and I might misspeak, and I aim to correct myself if I do, and I really, really appreciate and would love for people to tell us when we get something wrong or if we need to be fact checked. We have
Well,
somebody
you
a
should agree
couple.
with everything I say, actually. You should take everything, at face value, and I don't look up what I
Yeah.
say, actually. Just
Yeah,
believe it.
well, like a month ago, we had somebody that pointed out, like I said, I don't know why Kamala Harris was at the Naval Observatory, and they said, "Oh, that's the vice president's residence." And I learned something new. I love discussion, conversation, correction, feedback. I love it. I'm happy to come on here and say when I got something wrong. I'm not afraid to be wrong because we're moving through this, we're processing things, we're talking through ideas. It's not necessarily, I'm not telling you that I am the mainstream media or I'm a government official or I am this is raw facts that I'm giving you. I try to tell the truth the best way I see it and know it. And sometimes I might misspeak, but it's never in malice. I only do it maybe out of ignorance sometimes. And it's not because I wanted to. It's just, it happens when we're talking, discussing ideas. You don't have all this information, in your noggin. Exactly. So,
I sit in my living room with the cat and watch like old Jim Carrey movies. So you really shouldn't be taking anything that I have to say as a source of
but yeah, take it
strong
as
validity. Just take it with a grain of salt.
just
Consider the
one
source,
man's
but
opinion, one man's
correct.
opinion, one woman's opinion. But yeah, but I do have to say here, there is some truth to that. There is some truth that the breakdown of government consensus, like I said, the disagreement about what is truth, the fundamental disagreement that, going back from what we had in this earlier conversation, bringing this forward, is that is a challenge to society, because a society can only function and a civilization can only exist if the people are all agreeing on what is real and what is true. I mean, take our dollar for existence. Our currency exists
Completely
because we
fake.
have, yes, exactly.
It's totally
But
fake.
because we have a consensus that it holds value, that makes the system function. But without that belief and without that, in God we trust, it says on our currency, without any trust, the system can no longer function. So what John Kerry is saying is correct. He is correct that there is a lot of misinformation and malinformation and confusion out there. And so that does make governing very, very difficult. But on the flip side, a lot of the issue is that they are no longer in charge of dismantling and like disseminating the truth and or the information, and people are able to, across the country, like when we saw after the debates, when they had when Trump mentioned about the cats and the dogs and everything, if you took the time to go and look on X or go look on you or even YouTube, so many different places, if you took the time to look up Springfield, Ohio, you are like in shock. And there's like citizen reporters. I have to say, I wish I had the name right now of the kid who did the X video. where he went and he did like an hour-long video speaking to all these different, speaking to Haitian migrants, speaking to the locals, speaking to all these different groups and different people on the ground in Springfield. That wasn't coming from ABC News. That wasn't coming from CBS. And yes, don't get me wrong, the mainstream media has its place. I'm not completely trashing it like a lot of people do, but I'm saying now that we have the internet, it's Pandora's box is opened. So me in Coleridge, Pennsylvania, you in Florida can see what's going on in Springfield, Ohio. And I can sit here in the Coleridge and say, well, wow, we're kind of seeing something a little bit similar in my community. And we're able to sit there and look at anecdotal information that we have that's right. We're going to the grocery store and we're like, oh no, these prices are crazy. And they're trying to gaslight us into believing that, oh no, we're in the best economy ever.
This is all Russian disinformation,
This
Karen.
is all, yes.
I don't know why you're towing Putin's, talking points. He obviously wants Donald Trump to get elected because that really worked out in his favor the first time.
Great example about the Russian disinformation. Miranda Devine from the New York Post has a new book out, and she was talking about the 51 government officials who signed off, and this was like the highest levels of the intelligence community, signed off in a letter, leading up like days before the 2020 election, saying that the Hunter Biden laptop story published by the New York Post was not, in fact, that was just all Russian disinformation.
50 different intelligence experts have said that this is Russian disinformation.
Yes. Yeah. So okay, we trusted the experts and we found out they were liars. So if you want us to believe you again, you need to stop telling us lies and we'll get on board with that. But when you want us to not believe what's in front of our eyes, it's kind of hard for us to get on board with what you're trying to tell us. And I think that does go back to, I know we were joking about like, why are you voting for Trump? And like everybody made fun of him talking about the cats and the dogs and everything. But at the end of the day, Kamala Harris got up there and laughed at the idea that migrants were reshaping and not even just reshape. It's not the migrant. I don't want to make the migrants
it's the migrants
of the sentence.
I'm telling you.
No, but that there are government and charities and NGOs and corporations that are acting to reshape communities and suppress your wages, change your towns, change the culture, register people to vote that are not legal citizens, and fundamentally change the structure of this country overnight. So Kamala Harris is just laughing at the idea that you would even think that that's true. And hey, Trump might have sounded like a moron when he was up there talking about it, but at least he knows it's true. And he's not trying to tell you to not believe what you see in your very eyes. And like I said before, I have no problems with, I know that sometimes we don't agree on this, but I do not have an issue with migration. I do not have a problem with bringing in people from other countries or having them legally come here. But at the end of the day, we need a border and we need some rules, and we can't just overnight change communities, and we can't just overnight bring in people that not, but on the flip side, I sometimes hope that the migrants might save America, because here is my belief about migrants.
Okay, go ahead.
This is why they might save America.
Uh-huh.
They did not come to America to live in the dumps that they left. Okay. Like they came to America to live the American dream. My uncle, I have family members that are foreigners, and they came here with the dream of living in America, having free speech, having the Second Amendment. Like they believe in
our ancestors from Europe, right? That's who you're referencing. Our European
ancestors. I'm talking about Indian, Pakistani. I'm talking about Guatemalan. I'm talking about people from all over the world who, no, they believe in America. They believe in what the founding fathers, and I'm not a huge like founding fathers freak here, but I'm not like one of those weirdos, but they believe in the Bill of Rights. They believe they don't want socialism. They don't want everybody living in a welfare state. Like They want to work hard. They work harder than most of us do. They're industrious and they want their private property protected. They want their families protected. They want to live in clean communities. They want the right to vote. They want the right to free speech. And I think that we just need to make sure now, do we need to just like open the border and open the floodgates and let everybody come in as they see fit? No, absolutely not. We need to have a border. We need to have some structure. We need to have some rules. But sometimes I think that the migrants might like step up and be like, oh no, we're not putting up with this. Like, this is not the way it's going to go. So,
I
and
respect
honestly,
your
yeah.
opinion, but I think it's definitely wishful thinking because as the old Trump said, they're not bringing their best.
Mm.
They're not sending their best. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I just feel like we are at a point right now where, and again, I'm not anti-migration, but we do need a complete moratorium for at least 10 years. This country is packed to the gills. Think about how many people are here illegally? Like 20 million, more than 20 million. We just need to pump the brakes a little bit and say, listen, we have to get things sorted out first before we allow even one more legal person to come in. We have to take care of our Native American born population, the people whose families have been here for generations. You know, your family's been here for generations. My family's been here for generations. We need to focus on taking care of those people first. And then after a certain period of time, we will, put the green light back up for legal immigration. We'll be very selective about it, though, for sure. But, apparently we're the only country that's not allowed to do that, though. Every other country can, be selective about their migration, but not America for some reason. I don't know. Those are
Well,
just my thoughts.
Well, yeah, I do agree with that. Like even in Germany, I'm not sure what the rules are now, but I remember when I was taking German in high school, my teacher explained to us that you couldn't just be born in Germany and become a German citizen. She's like, there's no
Right.
birthright citizenship in Germany. So I'm like, well, why are the Europeans always judging us over here? Like, why are they always acting like we're some kind of like racist hellhole and they like they don't even have birthright citizenship. Like they don't screw around. And obviously you see with the migrant crisis taking place in Europe that, oh, I guess it is kind of difficult living in an ethnically diverse community, isn't it? It is a little bit difficult trying to figure out different cultures and the clashes. And I'm not saying that it can't exist. I'm not speaking out against it, but there are challenges that the Europeans were not faced with that the Americans were, and now they're starting to live it out and see it for themselves. And it's not exactly simple managing all that. It's not exactly simple handling all those circumstances and really governing over people like we were talking about before, like trying to coexist and govern over people that don't agree on so many fundamental issues. And I think that's really what you're saying about like as I am defending people from diverse backgrounds, because I feel like there are many of them that are here for the American dream. They're here because they believe in these principles and these values. But at the same time, there are challenges, and we are seeing those challenges lived out where we have such an ethnically and not even just ethnically, but just such a diverse population. Really, I mean, when you think about it, Europe is 50 different countries in almost the same geographic location. It's not
Yeah, you can take
exactly,
the
but
train
yeah,
to get to a
yeah,
different country.
yeah. But so they are all separated by these very, very tight ethnic communities, and they're governing over such a small ethnically just similar groups of people that have been, like you said, for generations, for millennia, been almost this, not maybe not a millennia, but almost very similar people, very similar beliefs, very similar backgrounds, very similar religions and faiths. And like you said, that's just, now we have 50 states and it's all just one country spread out all over. And like you said, and with a very aggressive immigration policy. But I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I don't know, where do we go from here is a difficult conversation, but there are challenges. It is not that simple. And we are starting to see that. And it's not even just, as I said at the beginning, it's not even so much about the ethnicity. It's about the beliefs. It's about, like I said, like from left to right, the diversity there it's an ideology, but it's also so vastly uh just the polarization there, and the opposites of it are just becoming harder and harder to govern. So that's why we need to stop free speech, apparently.
It's
So
and one quick little side note that our conversation about truth brought up in my mind. There's a scene from Mel Gibson's 2004 film The Passion of the Christ, where Pontius Pilate is kind of, it's that moment where he's really between a rock and a hard place in terms of what he's going to do with Jesus Christ. And he's kind of in his room there. He's got his hands on his head. He's like, and he's asking his wife Claudia, like, Claudia, what is truth? And she says something to the effect of, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but she says, like, if you don't know what truth is, I'm sorry, but I can't tell you. Like, if you don't know what it is, then the truth is the truth. So anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that. It just our conversation reminded me of that scene where he's trying to figure out, like, what is truth? What should I
yeah,
do here? And she's just
yeah,
kind of like, this should be kind of self-evident.
yeah. Well, in Christianity, we believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and all truth flows from him. So, like I said,
I'm not
going
a
back to
Pontius
that,
Pilate hater, by the way. I think he gets a bad rap because, like, really, if you were in his
no,
position,
he
it's like,
gets a better,
shit, what do I
yeah,
do here?
because he
Like,
wants to, yeah,
this guy
placate the
didn't do
mob.
anything, but I've got this mob. Like, I don't think he was inherently a bad dude.
No, I think that he saw that Jesus was good, and he didn't even understand it. He was
Yeah,
confused,
that's the vibe
but
I get.
that's yeah, but that's a
From watching
vibe.
videos of actors portray Pontius Pilate.
No,
That's the
but
vibe I
you're
get.
absolutely right. That is completely true. That he did see it, and was confused. But but it is so important. Like going back to that article in the Atlantic, when that they're just there's a fundamental disagreement about what is true, and then they're looking and reading and thinking like, oh my goodness, these people are so absurd, and and it really does feel like an existential crisis for all these different tribes, I guess, in their political spaces. But we shall see. We shall see what is to come. Like you said, I mean, Kamala might get elected. I mean, if Trump gets elected, we know that it's just going to be nonstop putting the brakes on Trump for the next 4 years.
God, I'm all in some ways. I know this is going to sound crazy to say, but in some ways, I'm almost at this point more fearful of Trump being elected simply because I fear an LBJ situation. I feel like that's why Vance was put in to
By
be the
Vance.
LBJ, and we are just going to be headed into this Middle Eastern quagmire. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm wrong. Hopefully Trump gets in there and he takes the bull by the horns and things get better for the average American. And I don't really have very high my
Expectations.
anticipation is very,
Yeah, I don't really either. I don't really feel like, that's what I said to friends of mine. I don't really feel like Trump is going to do a lot, but at least he's going to maybe put the brakes on the globalist system. But then I
correct.
told them that the Bible predicts a one world government. So maybe I should just get on board with it and let Kamala do her thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Bring the one world government on.
if she would announce a universal basic income, where I can get a reasonable check in the mail every few weeks, and I can just kind of do what I was meant to do, which is, wake up leisurely and have a coffee and a pastry and go about my day, I'll be
Really,
okay.
with the amount of money that is spent on politics, like they could literally just send us all money and like we could all just be happy. Like we could
That's what
all
I'm
just
saying.
like if they were not spending so much money on all, if they redirected all of that money, we all just got random checks from like the Koch brothers and George Soros. Like we would all
Yes.
just be like, most people wouldn't even vote. They wouldn't even pay attention to the election. They'd be like, who the hell cares?
Yeah,
This is
you guys do
great.
what you
Yeah.
want.
You
Like,
do
just
whatever you want with the country. Yeah, we just okay, just keep sending those
yeah.
Koch brothers checks.
I just want
Thanks.
a little
Thanks, boys.
cafecito, as they say. Just a little cafecito, a little flaky pastry in the morning.
So
And,
good. So good.
listen to some tunes, maybe go, go out and do whatever. Why just leave me alone,
Well,
with the
how
whole
about on a lighter note, we didn't get to talk about this last week because I lost my voice, but we had talked about months ago. You had speculated that Michelle Obama would become the candidate, and I kind of anticipated that no, she wanted to just hang out with the Spielbergs. She wanted to go hang out on the yachts, and I couldn't believe
yeah.
when I saw my eyes. It wasn't this past week, the week before. She was at a Costco slinging some fizzy drink. She came out. This is like a real thing, people. Like Michelle
Very
Obama is
cringe.
now pimping some drink that she came up with. And it almost feels like the whole, like that's why it's so hard to in some ways be. I know we just talked so much at length about the election, but everything feels like a parody. Like the fact that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are candidates. I mean, sometimes like I pinch myself and I'm like, not only is Donald Trump, not only has he been the president, but I voted for him twice.
I only voted for him once, just in
Like, yeah.
2020.
Yeah, like it kind of blows my mind that that's reality. So sometimes it just does feel like everything has become like some kind of sick comedy.
It's like an
And
episode of Veep, if you've ever watched that show
I
with
have
Julia
not, but
Louis-Dreyfus.
I heard that Kamala Harris becoming like the president is just like that show.
It's identical. Like, and when I say identical, I mean it in the literal sense. This, if she becomes president, this will be a real life Veep.
Wow.
And
This predictive programming.
is there anything lighthearted we can kind of wrap up with today?
Yes,
Anything
yeah,
sort
there
of
definitely is. Well, of course, we got a little basic witchery. I have to apologize, everyone. I was trying to bring a new pumpkin fall treat to each and every episode. But I actually ate the fall treat that I was gonna display
what
today.
was it?
So there's like these little donut muffins, pumpkin donut muffins, and they do
Mm.
apple cider donut muffins. They come in a 3-pack. It's by like Bisou Markets. They're not like, I don't know exactly what it is, but they were just at the bakery section in like a plastic little bag, like this big, um, at my grocery store. And so I had those. I was gonna have one more tomorrow, but I figured today, you know what? I deserve two. I didn't
Let
get
your
dessert
hair
last
down a
night
little
at
bit,
dinner.
give yourself a
Yeah,
little
like
treat.
so that was my weekend treat, and I wanted to show everybody that was gonna be my treat today. But hey, sorry, I'm a pig. So what are you gonna do? I had to
You
eat
know what
it.
you know what I've been looking for? I don't even know if they still make them, but my mom used to buy them when I was a kid. They were called witchy treats, and they
Hmm.
were made by Tasty Cake. And I remember she used to pack one in my lunch in grade school, but it was basically like it looked like a Twinkie, but it had chocolate frosting with like orange sprinkles on top.
I
Witchy
know what you're talking
treats.
about. I've seen them. I've seen them. I'm
They're
not,
still
that was
around?
never my, I don't know if they're still around. If I see them, I'll just buy them and then I'll feature
Yeah.
them on the next episode. That is actually something I probably wouldn't be tempted to eat. But I think the pumpkin smiles, we had the pumpkin tasty cake pie. I had the sweet souls. Man, I eat a lot of treats. Like I'm always like, why am I not getting more in shape? And like that's probably why. Like
Got
now
that
that I
sugar
think about
addiction.
it, the sugar. I know RFK Jr., he needs to come into my house and like throw everything away. But until
Yeah,
then,
that is, I keep forgetting about RFK Jr. Like if he becomes the head of the CDC
Yeah.
or the NIH, like okay, that would be worth it then. It's like, okay, yeah, I do have to vote for Trump because I want to see if he actually does put RFK Jr. in some sort of a position of power. I would like to see that.
What do
So
you think is going to happen this time around? Because last time he just picked like random people. He just picked like the Amway heiress, Ben
that's probably what'll happen.
DeVos. Yeah. Like, do you think he'll
Let's
just do?
be honest. That's probably what'll
But
happen.
no,
I
I'm
doubt.
thinking, do you think he'll pick like actual, like, I feel like last time it was like, okay, Vince McMahon's wife and like
Yeah, Linda.
just random people from the private sector. Do you think this time they'll have more government kind of officials in place?
Government officials, like, are you talking like
Like
status
people,
quo?
yeah, like more like Republican
Yeah,
status quo
yeah,
individuals.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think there was a single solitary lesson that this man has learned from his first term. I really don't think there's been any lessons learned.
I think you're right.
Uh,
I think that that's probably like a Trump pattern. Like he probably hasn't learned
yeah,
anything in his life.
no,
Like he,
no,
and like I said, it's kind of hard like defending him sometimes. Like I really do want to defend him and explain
me
why I'm
too.
voting for him, but at the same time too, you're like, yeah, yeah,
I'm at the point where like my whole selling point is like, well, he does that dance when they play the YMCA. Like that's almost why I'm voting for him. It's like I find him likable because he does the dance with the
I like the
YMCA.
meme
He's
video
cool.
where he like points
Yeah,
at you. Yeah, and he's
yeah.
like,
It's like these superficial reasons why I'm
yes,
voting for him. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. You're
well,
like at this
I don't like
point.
Kamala. I don't find her likable. I think that she is a see you next Tuesday. You spell that out. And Trump is just kind of cool, and he's funny. He's like a stand-up comic. Like these are like these are the reasons why I'm voting. It has
Yeah, you're
nothing to do
like,
with policy at this
yeah, you're
point.
like at this point, just do what you want. Just do what you want.
Yeah,
I actually I have a family member who's pretty religious. I won't even I'll just say religious. And he actually does not vote at all. Like he would vote for Trump. Like he's all about Trump, but he will not vote. Like he still will not vote
good for
because
him.
yeah, he just thinks
Honestly.
he says that, in the Bible it says that God appoints the rulers. So he says like what's the point? And I'm
I
like,
almost
well,
respect
he
the non-voters more nowadays. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm veering more towards George Carlin's whole philosophy of, it's a big club, you ain't in it. This is all predetermined anyway, and that's that. So
I would say that I would think it was predetermined, but after the 2016 election, maybe that's what just broke the camel's back because Trump was
yeah,
not
but
supposed to win. He was not supposed to
he
win.
wasn't. But then they co-opted him anyway. It's like
Yeah.
the outsider got in, and then the RNC machine swallowed up the movement, which is what we've
Yeah.
seen these
Yeah.
past years. So
And maybe we can't handle a populist movement. Like maybe our country really can't handle. And maybe that's what we need. I think what we need, like after Trump, I really wish in some ways Trump didn't come back because I really feel like what the conservatives needed to do was to stop focusing on politics. Like I think that is how we are going to wrap up this show today is by telling people that you need to actually turn out, even though we're talking about it, we're going to talk about how you shouldn't talk about it. But I really feel like you need to
look inward.
look inward and also look around you to the people that are right in front of you, to the community that's right in front of
Your
you.
disgusting family, your disgusting community, your disgusting friends.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I go into town and I'm like, oh God, why do I live here?
Yeah, please carpet bomb this place. Joking. Of course.
Joking. But like I said, really at the end of the day, like I think what needed to happen, I think the Trump loss was actually a really good thing. And whether it was a
I think
stolen
you're right.
election or not, I
It
feel
was.
like it was time for conservatives and Christians to kind of get back to their main objective, which is God's kingdom, not Trump's kingdom. But unfortunately, a lot of Christians have made Trump into a false god. And
Yeah, I can see that.
he's really become like a false idol, and it's problematic. And perhaps, as much as, like I said, am I going to vote for Trump? Yes. But maybe we really do need a post-Trump world. Like, and I'm not saying, I'm saying,
What are you
as far as,
insinuating,
well,
Karen?
no, 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 no. I'm
Like,
not insinuating that. No, no, no. I was worried when I said that. I was like, oh God, that's not what I'm trying to say. I just mean, like, in the
I know.
political arena, we just kind of maybe need Trump to go away so that we can get focused back on not so involved in politics. It's so trivial, really, at the end of the day. It's important, but it's not as important as our relationships. It's not as important as people. I'll tell you what, when I was sitting on my deathbed, like literally on my deathbed, like the last thing I cared about, I remember flicking through the television in the hospital, waiting to have a transplant, and seeing Nancy Pelosi on the screen. And I worked in the news, and I just remember being like, get this the heck off of my screen. I don't want to see any of
Right.
this. I didn't watch news ever. I just had absolutely no desire to see it. I didn't care what was going on. Wasn't important. I have a family friend right now who's been on life support. We went down to visit her in the hospital. And I'll tell you what, nobody in her family cares about the election. No, she doesn't care about the election. They don't care about the election, not the topic of conversation. So I think I think that's what, in some ways, we kind of need in this country. We need to get back to what really matters. And sorry, it always gets philosophical towards the end here.
That's just the
Like final
nature
thoughts. Yeah.
of the way this podcast goes.
Yes.
But you want to wrap it up with some horoscopes?
I guess we should. Yeah. Yeah. So some a little basic witchery. For
That's kind of what we specialize
what
in.
we specialize in. All right.
Yeah.
So for Donald Trump today on September 29th, Gemini, this is the ideal time to get serious about something you have been thinking about on and off for weeks, months, maybe even years.
The campaign. Running a good campaign.
Maybe you need to get serious about this. Now's the time to like pay attention, Trump. The cosmic picture is such that if you start work on it now, it will be all but complete by the end of the year. Project 2025.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. This is good news. This is a good horoscope. Okay. I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic.
But we have another one for Miss Kamala. What is Kamala Harris's middle name?
Marie.
Is it
no,
really?
I just made that up. I don't. I have no idea.
All right. Somebody write in the comments. I'm not even going to look it up, but I want somebody to tell us what it is. If you made it this far, please let us know. Please Google and put it in the comments. All right. For the Libra, Kamala Harris, there may be no limits to what you can do, but that is not an invitation to do everything. The closer you get to Wednesday's solar eclipse, there's another eclipse.
There's an eclipse every day. It's a solar eclipse. Yeah. We live in a solar eclipse. My God.
Mercury's permanently in retrograde. So the more you will recognize what you should be aiming for. Listen to and act on what your inner voice tells you. I also want to say that I was saying Kamala Harris for the longest time, as her childhood friend did. And then Colin told me it was wrong. And I needed to start saying it as Kamala, like the wrestler.
The Ugandan giant, Kamala.
And for a very long time on this podcast, I thought that I was being so professional. I was getting back into my public radio days. I was trying to be respectful of the vice president and her office. So I continued to say, I trained myself to not say Kamala, and I was saying Kamala because we are a refined, respectable organization here. And then to come to find out that it's actually Kamala. And I'm like, wait a minute. So Colin has me gaslit into believing.
Do I need to recite the snake poem for you to remind you of why you shouldn't listen to me? Do we need to talk about the snake?
The snake poem. We'll have to next week, we are going to play the snake poem at the beginning of the episode and talk about the snake poem, because the snake poem kind of scares me sometimes. And I think, like, is Trump the snake? So
that's my Chinese animal, the zodiac animal. I am literally the snake. So
I'm probably like the rat.
What he might be, yeah, he might be the rat, and the snake does eat the rat. So,
and that's why you set me up.
Yeah, exactly.
You had me thinking. I thought I was so like proud of myself. Like,
I thought it was funny.
I'm just this good, just like an elite liberal white woman. I was just like, I'm just a liberal do-gooder. I'm just, look at me, little virtue signaling here, and I could actually pronounce her name correctly and give her respect. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm pronouncing this completely wrong, and I sound like a moron.
I'm sorry. I do apologize for that.
Did you know how to pronounce it?
No, in all seriousness, I have always said Kamala, back from back
because of but it's Kamala.
When did we first learn about this woman? 2020? Like,
I knew about her a little bit because of her being the senator from California. That's really the only reason.
She was the AG in California, wasn't she?
She was the AG, and then she became the senator.
I legitimately thought that it was Kamala, and also I like the wrestling tie-in, so I continued to call her that, and I still do call her that. I switch back and forth. Sometimes, it depends on when you catch me. I'll say Kamala, then other times I'll say Kamal. I don't really think it matters.
Her childhood friend was calling her Kamala. So
Montel Williams called her Kamala.
Yeah.
On camera.
Yeah. Chameleon Harris, like the New York Post said.
Yeah.
Chameleon. Like, come on. And Donald Trump we got to come up with a name for Donald. If she's going to be Chameleon Harris, he has to be something too. But until next time, we'll figure the snake.
Yeah. Until next time. We have a lot of thought to do, a lot of thinking to do before the next episode. But hey, this was fun, right? Our little return episode after Karen blew out her voice from all of her. She's partying every weekend. She's indulging in alcoholic beverages. I'm a little bit concerned about her and some of her life choices. There's a lot of sugar, a lot of alcohol, a lot of interesting characters, but it's okay. I trust her that we'll be here next week.
Downward spiral.
Yeah, no, we're gonna really pick things back up again.
We got. So before we go, should we do an election live stream? Should we do?
I think we should.
Kind of election. We're gonna have to figure this out. Okay.
At least like an hour or so. We should go live for an hour or so just to kind of talk about.
Maybe when the polls close on the East Coast. Like, we'll just do when the polls close on the East Coast, see what we're seeing, and just like talk about it for an hour and be like, all right,
so like 8 p.m.-ish.
Yeah, I think is it 9 o'clock? I thought it was 9 o'clock in Pennsylvania, but maybe it's
probably is 9 o'clock. You're right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're going to be
shut
down for election disinformation.
And then they're going to need to stop the counting. They'll do that.
Again.
So you know what? We're going to call it quits for a night. Everybody go to bed.
Yeah. Just go to sleep. You'll wake up the next day and find him in Nazi Germany.
Right.
You're like, wait a minute. Where did I, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch? I'm Kamala, bitch. Okay.
Yeah. Well, listen.
But I just said it wrong again. Kamala.
It's my fault. I really screwed up everything.
It's the accents. Yeah, it's totally fine. But yeah, we should probably do that. I'm sure we can get some good bevies. And really to go back to like when the polls open or close, like they're indefinitely open. Like they're just open forever. There's no
the
early
polls
voting,
are open right
late
now.
voting. Yeah, like you can vote right now. Like
you can send your vote in by pigeon if you want, by Raven. You can just write it in crayon. It truly does not matter anymore in this country.
I mean, it's about the same. It really is about the same. They're just gonna take him and throw him in the trash.
Yeah. If it says Trump, they have a shredder. they have like an industrial shredder there.
We're gonna get removed from YouTube for these comments. It's a joke. We are
Yeah, this is
kidding.
a
This
comedy
is not.
podcast,
It's
really.
a
Both of our
comedy.
lives
Yeah.
are jokes, really. Like this whole thing, everything that we say is a joke.
The
Our
world is a
existence,
joke.
the world is a joke.
Just like Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage. Okay. All
And
the
we are
world is
merely
a,
players.
and all the world is a stage. We are merely players. And as it turns out, this is a great comedy that is written by, we're actually just living in a Shakespeare, as Edgar Allan Poe said, isn't it all just a dream within a dream? And it's certainly starting to feel that way. It definitely is. So, well, until
Well, hey.
next time, Colin.
Yeah, until next time, Karen, give us a like on the YouTube video, hit the subscribe button, follow us on X, and we'll be back right here next week with more insightful and witty commentary about the state of our existence and our world. And we hope everyone has a lovely and enjoyable week, and we'll see you next time.